Hey, Mario, what's this about Jackson Hinkle? When you go all the way. You don't go halfway. You don't go halfway. You go
He did
all
it.
the way.
He chanted "Death down with the USA" in Iran. Did you see the video?
No.
Oh, you gotta see this, Stephanie. Can you play the video? No, Joe. He went to Iran, and then this video. So I just laughed when I saw it. A video of him surfaces he goes on stage and he's yelling "Down, down with the USA" or "Down with the USA."
Down with USA. Down with USA. Down with USA.
So that was him in Iran during the funeral. And then two members of Congress, I swear, he always has that shock factor. And then what's his name? I forgot his name. What's the member of Congress like very pro-Israel and says Randy Fine? Randy Fine. Guy.
Big fat
Yeah,
Randy Fine.
called for his impeachment for treason. But I just had a chat to him. Not impeachment, sorry, his arrest for treason. I think there's a death sentence for treason.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, going there and expressing your opinion is very different than lending material support to an enemy in war. So you guys those guys might want to read this thing called the United States Constitution. In the Constitution, there is one crime that's listed in there, and that's treason. And it is very specific. Funny enough, I wrote about this in my last book because Benedict Arnold, who the American general who went over to the side of the British, was in fact providing not just material support to the enemy. When the day that George Washington was in his house, he was meeting with his British intelligence handler, Major Andre, who was a British officer in charge of all intelligence in the American continent, and actually had formulated a plan to capture Washington. His senior staff, which was foiled by, of course, his being, Major Andre being captured, and then Washington's chief of intelligence, Major Talmadge, just happened to be at the point where they captured Major Andre and realized from the documents captured on Major Andre that Benedict Arnold was not just going to give up West Point, the plans to West Point. The British were coming to capture West Point. He had degraded all the defenses and was going to have Washington captured in his own house. So when the Constitution was written, it was really specifically oriented towards Benedict Arnold, but in fact got his wife off. The sins of the father cannot be held against the children. So he must actually, for example, join the Iranian army or provide support other than his opinion. Americans have the right to express their opinion, even in foreign countries. Case in point, Jane Fonda and others who have gone to opposing countries. But here's my problem with Jackson Hinkle, besides the fact that he needs a good slap. He's too freaking lazy to actually learn the words Bag America, which is Farsi for downtown America. It's like, you little shit, you go over there, you don't even fucking learn the proper words. So now you've got half the crowd who are a very savvy crowd in Iran. They all know down into America, but they're expecting to hear Bag America, which is what anyone could learn when you're over there.
So he said he didn't plan it. So he was born on stage. They were asking him to come on stage. And the chants were happening. But do you think, so you said material support. Do you think this would be considered material support for the enemy, him chanting that in a protest? Tricky, isn't it?
The thing is that the Trump people might do it, but here, let me tell you something. There's a precedence for, finding out what he did during the rest of his trip. If he did what he did in Russia, right, which is like go hang out with the Russian army, right, and fire weapons. I think that was Jackson Hinkle, wasn't it? There's a bunch of guys.
He lives in Russia, so he
lives in Russia. Is he a Russian citizen now? Did he get the full?
Just American.
Oh, he hasn't gotten the full treatment over there where they give you Russian citizenship and that.
No.
But he has definitely put himself on a point where, almost could he be extra legally renditioned, which means that a team of people, or whether it's Mossad or the CIA, grab him for the purpose of bringing him back
Jesus
and
Christ.
charging him with treason. Yeah, to a certain extent. But we need to find out what else he did there. Did he go around? Did he visit Pickaxe Mountain? Did he go to ballistic missile sites? Did he press the missile launch for a ballistic missile or a drone? If he
No, I
did that,
think he
then
did
he's
that.
going to. If he did that, then he's going to eat a hellfire. Okay, that's what
Yeah,
Anwar
I'm
al-Awlaki did. So
pretty confident he didn't do it. Who did that?
yeah,
Who did
okay. Anwar al-Awlaki, the Yemeni American citizen who was a senior member of Al Qaeda, the Arabian Peninsula. The man was plotting terrorist attacks. His son had 15-year-old son was running around with a rifle and a sworn member of Al Qaeda. That's when you become an enemy combatant. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if Trump decided to press his luck. But I just think he's an idiot, right? An idiot like that. You make fun of them. He's never coming out of Russia. I'd hate to see that guy land in New York City. There'll be a SWAT team waiting for him.
Yeah, not at least for a couple of decades till things really, really change.
What's even worse is Russia's going to burn him, right? Russia
think so?
eats and consumes people like this and then kicks them out, or the Israelis will do it. God, what a moron. How do you go through life
risky.
like this? It's like,
It's
I'm
risky.
going to be such an edgelord that I will be on the edge of everything against everything decent. Even if it is Trump, going against your own country, at least come out and say, hey, I want to renounce my American citizenship. So then we really can't put a Hellfire missile onto your ass.
But you don't, I'm the last guy. You don't advocate for that, though.
Who, me? No, I'm not advocating
Hellfire
for it.
missile.
I'm
Okay,
just
okay.
no. But I'm just saying, bro, you want to be an edgelord? Go all the way. Don't be a pussy about it.
But I don't. That's already all the. That's all the way already, man. He literally went and visited the Houthis, the Hezbollah funeral.
Of course
I
he
remember
did,
once
but
I
he
had
did
him-
it as a journalist, right? In this particular instance, I don't know, getting up on a stage.
That's.
You're a
I
lot.
told him. I saw even for me, man. That's pretty damn crazy. it's pretty wild.
He's the least of our worries in this world. He's just such a little punk. And
What do
what's
you-
going to
what
be
do you
even
think-
funnier is when he shows up in somebody's jail. Someone's going to out him as a Mossad agent or something. He'll be crossing the Tajik border, and the next thing you know, he's snatched and he's in a Tajikistani jail there, and Russia won't come and get him, and neither will America. That'd be fun.
Russia
That
wouldn't. 'Cause
I
he's not a
advocate
Russian
for.
citizen. No, I hope
He's got
doesn't go to
residency,
jail.
though, right? If to live there, he's got to have residency.
Probably. Yeah, I didn't ask him. I asked him just about the passport.
Okay.
All right. So on the war front, Admiral Brad Cooper is in Israel calling for renewed strikes against the energy infrastructure. You saw that?
Yeah, that's what Channel 13 Israel says.
Yeah. Do you think it's true?
You know what? You can never tell what's true or not true in this war anymore with regards to propaganda. The Israelis have an agenda, and they stick to it. You got to respect that. And they made it eminently clear this is their agenda. Now, they're reporting that when he spoke to the Israelis, he's advocating that the U.S. forces continue and take out that 20% that they claim that they missed when the war stopped on day 40. Well, what the hell were you doing this last 35 days, right? I mean, you had, another 20 days of airstrikes. If you didn't get it during that time and you were just tapping around the edges, then what do you think you're going to be able to do this time? If it's energy and infrastructure, and they said he was advocating for energy, he was advocating for infrastructure. I don't know. He seems like a pretty smart guy, and that could be misconstrued as war crimes. So I'm not particularly sure he's the kind of guy that wouldn't listen to his judge advocate generals about what he could and could not hit.
But he did advocate a couple of weeks ago before Trump tackled for the last time. He was the one advocating, according to reports, for another 2 weeks of bombing. So he's one of the hawks right now in the administration. Kane is more hesitant to do that. Even Marco Rubio doesn't think it's a good idea. I'm sure Hegseth does, but yeah.
Well, I think it's good that we have people in there, especially General Kane, who's quite the rational player here, and people thought he was going to be really on board with Trump. He had practically campaigned for him while he was in uniform and got brought up from retirement to active duty to be chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But he is really respecting the lives of the men and women and the op tempo of this war and evaluating it on the basis of, can we impact the enemy's will to fight, and can we bring the enemy around to our means, of our will? And he's pretty much assessed that we can't. We would be just wasting ordnance, breaking up rocks, and the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed. That is what a real military leader is supposed to do. Now, if the president orders 2 more weeks, a month more of airstrikes, we can do that. That's very easy. And I'm sure, I don't know whether Admiral Cooper has some sort of invisible strike betting pool going on where he bet his buddies that he would hit 50,000 bombs. And that's the reason that he wants to continue this campaign, because I don't see any logic in it. I don't see any tactical or even rational strategic logic in this. And for those of you who are saying, well, you were senior enlisted, what would you know about that? Help drop a lot of bombs. You have to affect something other than the act of dropping bombs. And at some point, you keep this up, someone's going to get shot down, killed, or captured.
So Bloomberg, in the meanwhile, just about 20 minutes ago, Bloomberg reported that Trump is preparing, quote, unprecedented economic pressure against Iran in an effort to force a deal. And Bessent said something similar, and Trump also in an interview talking to the press said the same thing about an hour ago as well, saying we're gonna, what did he say? We have got economic sanctions against them like nobody's ever had before. So it seems that they've pivoted from war to economic pressure.
From kinetic warfare to economic warfare.
Yes, good idea.
It's just ludicrous. It's ludicrous because I know what's going to happen. We talked about this a few weeks ago, that the Israelis floated the idea of a 7-nation ground blockade of all goods, materials, stuffs, produce, whatever, coming from the 7 surrounding nations, and that they would boycott and blockade Iran from the ground. Now, there is a way to do that if you're going to use kinetic warfare, which is you just destroy every truck that comes in, you kill civilians willy-nilly. But let's take a look at the geography and the geopolitical relationships of Iran. To the southeast, you have Pakistan, which right now has 6 border crossings open. Remember when all of them opened, when the first part of the blockade came into effect? Pakistan is desperate for Iran's oil, right? Other than India, and China, they are the number 1 recipient of Iranian oil. But more importantly, when countries have an economic blockade like the United States imposed, container ships can't get in. I want to point something out to you. Dows from Dubai Creek have never stopped going to Iran during the entirety of this war, right? TVs, radios, foods, dates, gold exchanges, all that's still going on. So we blockaded Iranian oil coming out, and we blockaded Iranian ships and container ships going back with products. But when you're talking about a border like Pakistan, when you initiate a blockade, well, all that does is create a black market opportunity. And the entirety of Pakistan, I don't know if you've ever been to Pakistan, where you see right down there, they will start trucking everything to Charbahar in Iran, right? Just cross the border, drop it off there. And as things are required, whether it's rice, whether it's beans, whether it's foodstuffs, whether it's halal food, there will always be someone there who will trade that, not on the black market, on the open market, right? If the need is there. Next will come going further north to the east, Afghanistan. They don't really have a lot, but what they do have is they do have foodstuffs that are fresh that comes from the market, and everyone who has any spare food is going to run over to the Iranian border and sell what they can that will be sold there in Afghanistan, whether it's dates, or any other sorghum, whatever they have over there, little wheat that they have that's in excess, they're going to sell it over there. To the northwest, northeast, you have Turkmenistan, right, which is a country the United States thinks that it can influence, because of the relationships the United States has had with the Turkmens. You're right, it's a dictatorship. But Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, if you look beyond them, you have Tajikistan, you have Uzbekistan, you have Kazakhstan, you have you have Mongolia, and you have China. This is the Silk Road that has been operating as trading lines for millennia, not centuries, thousands of, hundreds of centuries, thousands of years. And if you think that you're going to cut off those pathways of guys with donkeys and camels laden with whatever they think they can sell at the Iranian border, you're very wrong. And if you go straight to the north from Tehran, you'll see the Caspian Sea. To the north of the Caspian Sea is Russia in its entirety and Kazakhstan. All of that is going to be rushing down there to sell whatever they have that Iran needs. Whatever America thinks they're cutting off, the Chinese can provide all those. You've been around. You've seen those little souks that pop up all over the place, and they have the same cheap Chinese plastic bins, the giant blue 50-gallon water containers, the fuzzy Chinese made blankets. This is all going to just whoosh, go over to Iran. The Russians are going to bring it down the Caspian Sea on barges, the way that they're bringing down drone parts, ballistic missile parts, things like that. Even though Azerbaijan up there to the northwest has the Azeris were attacked by Iran, supposedly attacking a Mossad safe house earlier in the war. There is a huge Azeri population in Iran, and they aren't going to stop trading with each other. They're not going to stop trading in dates, wheat, baking flour, all of these things that are needed there as staples. They're going to, if they can make money at it, they're going to sell it. The Armenians, which is just to the west of them, hate the Azeris, but they're still going to do business there. There are Armenians in there. The Kurds of Iran, right there in the northwest, are still going to be doing business with Turkey. Turkey's going to, NATO member or not, they're going to sell anything that they can over there so long as it maintains the staples of 93 million people. And then you have Iraq, which is 85% Shia Muslim. Okay, they're not going to stop selling stuff across the Shat al Arab waterway. If you think those little boats are going to stop going the 300 meters between Iraq and Iran because Donald Trump says so, you got another thing coming. And, sure, the Gulf states aren't going to sell anything over there, but they will hand them $3 billion in cash, $244 million in gold that happens to be in Dubai. They may actually subsidize $300 billion or more, or return the $100 billion that's there with Iran. So if I were the Iranians, I'd be like, blockade us on land, you and what army? Okay, we're going to get everything that we need for staples. You can't starve us. Okay, I mean, this isn't the siege of Jerusalem by Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. This is not the siege of Tyre. This is not where they're surrounding it and throwing dead bodies back in and you're reduced to eating corpses. Whoever came up with this stupid fucking idea has never heard of history, geography, and the trade across the Silk Route. Maybe they should fucking go read the stories of Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta if you would like to know how the dates are going to get into Muqtada al-Khamenei's breakfast tomorrow morning. They're going to be brought from anybody that's willing to sell it. And there's going to be a lot of Westerners and Chinese that are going to be really willing to sell it if we announce this trade blockade. But this started actually from the Israelis. The Israelis are the first ones to propose this. It's almost laughable.
Yeah, I have nothing to say. It's like, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna say?
It's like saying I'm gonna blockade Dubai Mall. Right? You can say it, okay, but there's two Gucci's in there. All right, Dubai Mall's required to have two of everything, right? And it's like, oh, what are you going to go to La Durie and stop selling fucking Macrons? There will be aircraft flying directly from Paris. Look, you can say things, you can enunciate things, but Scott Bessent, who is an interesting character for a gay billionaire who thinks that he is the right hand with children, the right hand of Donald Trump's economic stranglehold upon Iran. I would be having beach parties. I would have IRGC beach parties with them, like cooking kebabs and shashlik and everything, And I would be putting it out in Lego videos about we eating good, we're eating better than the USS Abraham Lincoln is. And that will hurt.
That's a good one. You just gave him an ID. It's material support for the enemy, Malcolm. Material support for the enemy.
Hey, if the enemy steals it through an intelligence operation, like monitoring your show, then it's not me helping them. It's them doing adequate collection. Good idea, Malcolm. Write
There's
that
also
down.
there's also the appointments. I think you're their favorite guest. Our favorite guest on Mario Show is Malcolm. He knows our dates and tea. He knows how we have our tea when we watch the missiles fly.
No, someone in Iranian intelligence is going, be fucked if this guy was in charge. Oh, really? Really? He would be quoting Khalif Ali at us. We would have to, and they go, he's a black guy. They'll never listen to him. And the funny thing is, this is why my memoir is called Thinker, Sailor, Black Man, Spy. Right? It's like the one angle you've never heard before is this, and you're getting it from the guys, the Mearshheimers and all the rest.
There's also the appointments by Mustafa Khamenei as well, and he's telling them prepare for offensive operations. And these guys like Rassam Razai, I think, and the other guy, those are, if you want to use the word, hardliners, or these are people that are very, as Morandi told me, they're very assertive leaders, people that have been in the trenches. The new leader of the IRGC, someone that was a commander of the IRGC during the Iran-Iraq war. So they're very high.
I told you about this very early on in this show. Muqtada al-Khamenei, at 17, was an officer in the IRGC and took part in the last ground operations against Iraq. And these are his buddies. These are his battle buddies. And you killed off the old cautious guys. Now you got guys in their 50s and their 60s who are like, oh, yeah, now we can do whatever we want. And the first thing they're going to think is, and by releasing, the video, the commander of the IRGC the other day, Nakti, I think his name is, he coming out and saying, hey, we really didn't know how to fight against the Americans, but now we do. We have really, fighting them has given us experience we couldn't get in the Iran-Iraq war. Iran-Iraq war is a meat grinder, right? We've been sitting and preparing for the United States. But now our fighting America has given us experience to defeat them, because even they're showing their limits. And when I got to watch an IRGC general sit there and lecture me about how we exposed ourselves, we played our hand, we have nothing left in the quiver other than an atomic bomb. There's nothing, asymmetric or clever that you can do that we haven't done. I mean, coming in there and landing two C-130s, MC-130s to get out the pilot, and then destroying them and the little birds, the Iranians are sitting there thinking, really? And just fucking take the highway. Yeah, everybody would have seen that, but you would have been able to take off.
Is it the rescue of the pilots? There's a lot of people talking about how there's a lot of bizarre things there. How far he walked from the crash site, for example, the location of the operation, the amount of military assets used. That it could have been something else, a cover for something else, maybe both, a downed pilot and something else.
I hear that. I constantly hear that.
Doesn't look like it for you.
No. The cover for something else. It really takes a lot more assets than that were on the ground. We blew up two little birds, maybe even four little birds, two MC-130s, but because they were not prepared, they did not do the proper assessment of the actual grounds that they were landing on. They should have landed a small aircraft ahead of time. And I know it was exigent circumstances, but you know what? Between you, me, and the fence post, I really think that they did it because it was cool and it was something they had practiced on. And that, the CAD guys, the Delta guys are like, yeah, let's get out there. We've landed on hard, soft terrain like that before. Let's get out there. Let's hold a facility, a runway. But it was so exigent that all of the people on the AC, the AFSOC air commandos there, the pilots and everybody else on these aircraft, had their ID cards and credit cards on them. Who the fuck? I mean, I was chief of resistance at a survival, evasion, resistance, and escape school. And of course, you sanitize yourself before going behind enemy lines. You don't carry your American Express card and everything in your pilot's flight bag like that one, mission commander on one of the MC-130s did. If you're going behind enemy lines, you go behind, with the intent that you may be captured. I had the impression that this was done because it needed to be done, but it most likely could have been done with a smaller footprint. But Hegseth wants bigger, better. Donald Trump wants big. So they went in heavy and strong instead of, hey, man, let's just get a helicopter down on top of him. Let's put a lot of aerial assets to dance around him, and let's just chop up everything that came around. They wanted CAG guys on the ground, hands on his body, right? ISOPREP card in his face and go, yo, are you, Duke 4-1? And the guy would be like, yeah. And it's like, what's your mom's maiden name? What's all this? You're doing this shit in a little bird, going back to a lily pad, which is where these guys are. And then you get there and they're like, yo, guys, we're fucked. We can't take off. Really? Then you did that for show. No, it was not a raid. There are a lot of people out there like it was the test bed for the raid on, the nuclear sites. No, if you're going to do the raid on the nuclear sites, you're going to go in heavy. You're going to take entire highways. You're going to cut them off. You're going to have rangers at both ends. It's going to, but Trump's big mantra was he will not have a Desert One, right? Which was the raid in 1979 to get the hostages out of Iran, in which 8 Marines and sailors were killed when 2 aircraft, an MH-53 crashed in a dust storm into a C-130 that was refueling it, and they left the bodies, right? It could have... About that? I do not disturb is on, and of course, I get called in by the wife. So that being said, what really, really happened there was they used way too many resources for the mission. Way too many. And they have no problem wasting $250 million of assets that the U.S. Air Force now has to replace.
Mark, I want to ask you another question. There's my co-host, Brandon Weicker, and I've had other guests mention it, but they're talking about the weaknesses within the U.S. Navy. Brandon is talking about how their ability to repair submarines has been degraded over the last few years, since the mid-90s, I think he said late 90s. The aircraft carriers, there's the story right now about the catapult thing that is gas-powered for an electromagnetic EMAS. Yeah, so that's that story that's coming out. I'll let you explain it to the audience. You've got the story about the Lincoln and people being stuck on there for so long. The shipbuilding capacity. There was another story from a week ago about the US not building any more icebreakers and having outsourced that to Canada, and I think it was Denmark. Is it really... I'll let you talk about the EMAS story that came out today. That seems to be pretty significant from a military perspective. And part of a bigger story, I want to get your thoughts. And that is... there it is. A very informative opinion article written by TWZ, of which I completely agree. It says that the change of the Ford-class aircraft carriers from electromagnetic catapults to steam catapults, it causes delays or risks delays in future Ford-class carriers due to the construction changes. There's a whole piece on it I saw about an hour ago. But yeah, I want you to kind of talk about this that came up a couple of days ago as part of a bigger story on the state of the U.S. Navy. Is it really as bad as many guests tell me?
I think we talked about this about a week ago. We talked about the state of U.S. shipbuilding and how it was all capital. It's just derived by capital. The United States government does not build or equip ships. And here's another interesting thing. First off, let me talk about emails versus steam. full disclosure, you can read about it in my memoir. I used to be a Sea
Jesus
Cadet
Christ, man.
when I was
How do you know about this? I'm like, should I ask
when
Mark?
I was
He
a
probably
young
knows.
kid. When I was 15 and 16, I was a Sea Cadet before I joined the Navy, and I did a aircraft carrier float. We did, I think it was almost 3 weeks on the USS Forrestal. And as part of that, I worked in 3 places on the ship. I worked in bow catapults, bow cats, and I did 2 things in bow cats. One was I took down recordings of the calibrations of the amount of pressure that the steam built up on the bow cats. And you're in a little booth below the starboard side catwalk, and there's a team down there. And what you do is this thing has to build up pressure, right? The steam system of the ship builds up pressure, and that pressure is brought out through a series of pipes and tubes up to the catapult. The catapult is a shuttlecock that comes back. It connects to a connector on the front end of the aircraft itself. I'm sure there's a technical term for it. I'm not a pilot. And then that steam pressure is built up. And that's why you see, if you watch Top Gun, you see the original Top Gun, you see all that steam on the cats and everything. And then that steam is released, right? Boom. That pressure is released. The shuttlecock slides forward. It slings that 30-ton aircraft up into the air. Cool, right? And then you got the guys there doing the post, launch dance, and the steam is up on the flight deck. It looks all sorts of interesting. Yeah, I sat in that little booth sweating my ass off at 15 years old, taking notes right on the pressure system of the Bowcats with a third-class petty officer who was teaching me that this is what they do. Now, of course, I was never allowed on Fly One, right, which was the forward part of the flight deck. But I did learn quite a bit about how that system works. Now, you're going to say, Malcolm, that was an old steam system from the Vietnam War. That system has not changed since it was installed in World War II, right? Steam cats, the early steam cats out there. The British, by the way, invented the steam catapult for their aircraft carriers. In the old days, the original one was the aircraft carrier would turn into the wind, and then you would use your rev your prop engines up, and then lift would take you off there. And then later on, steam cats would give you a little shove down the way. And then when the jet age came, you had to have it. There's an F-35 catting off the wing cats, the starboard midship cats. But then, but what I learned about this was very simple, right? That in the big scheme of things, what you want to do as your carrier air wing is get as many aircraft off in the modern world as quickly as possible. Because if you're assembling an air wing or a flight of aircraft to go do an operation, let's say you're going to have a 6-ship attack against Syriac Island, right? You now have to cat off Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4, right? To get those aircraft off. And it goes up in the air. And then while aircraft number 5 and 6 go to the bow cats or the waist cats, or the E-2 Hawkeye, which has to provide command and control, or your new drone, right, has to go up for in-flight refueling. Those other aircraft are pulling donuts up there and are burning fuel. And that means now you either have to refuel them, depending on how many bombs you're carrying and the distance that it's going, or you have to get those other aircraft up as quickly as possible. The name of the game in real warfare, big Navy warfare, is getting the air wing off the deck as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, especially if, there's a 300 cruise missile attack coming in. Right? Not positive. So what you want to do is you might have to get the entire, 64 F-18s off that deck as quickly as possible. Tankers up there as quickly as possible. Hawkeyes up there. You also have your plane guard helicopters and things like that. That takes a dynamic flight deck. And here's where trouble comes in. If you slow down, right? Or if you cannot get aircraft up as quickly as you thought you can. The Navy decades ago understood. My dad, by the way, boiler technician in the U.S. Navy for almost 30 years. All he lived with is steam. Steam powered ships, steam powered systems, steam powered everything. So steam, as much fun as it is, requires an enormous amount of fuel to boil. And it's not just steam, by the way. It's called superheated steam. And superheated steam is what provides those super high pressures that allow the ship's, systems to turn. We don't have any of those anymore. We replace them with gas turbines and then nuclear power, which creates its own steam through nuclear energy, right? And now the Navy realized direct electrical pathways is easier, lighter, more cost efficient, and actually can be worked around if there's damage, right? It's like an electric car. I mean, I got an electric EV, right? There's ways around it. They weigh less, and you don't have to refuel all the time to create that superheated steam. So they've created this system called EMALS, electronic air launches. Oh, electromagnetic air launch system, right? This is where that shuttlecock that goes to the front of the aircraft, it is brought up. It is an electric gun that uses magnets, which throws that magnet down the flight deck, but it recovers instantly. There is no steam that has to be recycled and repressurized. If an aircraft carrier takes a hit from a drone, a cruise missile, and it breaks a steam line, the superheated steam lines in there, your cat could go down, right? Or if it has some sort of fouling inside it. With EMALS, you could in fact just take a cable and reconnect it. So the Navy has been working on this for decades. And yes, the USS Ford was the first ship of its kind to have this. Donald Trump has met some old drunk ass guy who flew, I said this in a tweet, F-9 Cougars between Korea and Vietnam with no combat experience. He's like, back in the old days, steam is how you threw an airplane off the carrier. It's like, yeah, well, we fucking had sails too. And in fact, full disclosure, we keep sails on some ship just in case. But you can jury rig sails. But that's the old days. Steam engines used to be more effective than diesel and electric locomotives as well. The future is calling. And we already have 3 carriers in the pipeline that have EMALS. You cannot rip them out. It would cost you as much.
Why does
as
he
the
want to? There must be something. Is it
Because
possible
he's
they're
a
not
fucking
working well?
moron. And why is the president of the United States concerned about what system the cats are using? Some guy, like I said, came up to him like, yeah, this is bullshit. You're not going to see that steam like you see in Top Gun. It's one of them liberal electromagnetic things. His fucking battleship that he claims that he wants, which is never, ever getting built. Lockheed Martin's going to get $10 million for those 2 paintings that he had of him and that fake ass plastic model ship. But, or Litton, whoever did that. They're supposed to have electromagnetic railguns on that ship. Same thing. Same technology.
The
How come he's
Chinese
all
have
down
it as
for
well,
that?
don't they?
The Chinese just started putting it on their 3rd large scale flat top because they're like, ooh, good idea. Because you can get the air wing up faster. And you hear these guys go, it had a lot of teething pains, systems went down. The meantime, operating between them was supposed to be 1,000 cats, and it's just 416 before it went down. You got to have contractors have to come on board. The Ford just went a full year at sea, catting and trapping every day with that system. Something like 10,000 cats. Now, I'm not a pilot, right? You need to be talking to Jack McCain about this, right? Oh, he's a helo pilot. But you need to talk about, I don't know, go get Senator, the senator who is the astronaut there, right? Gabby Gifford's husband. Go get Senator Kelly. Go talk to a guy that's got fucking 6 Centurion patches on there, right? 600 catapults and traps on his arm, and go ask him what he thinks of it. If you want fucking nostalgia, then go get nostalgia. But I got some news for you. Don't tell the president, but all of our ships are now gas turbine and are moving on to electrical, propulsion.
Electromagnetic, yeah.
And aircraft carriers. That nuke is actually creating electrical energy now in these new carriers.
Don't tell Trump.
Fuck. Does he think it's windmills or some shit? Guess what? There's windmills up on the main bridge. They're called aerometers. Don't tell
Really?
they measure the wind.
And what about the argument some people are making that the U.S. Navy is really broken in many ways? Is it, in a dire situation, it's not that bad, is it?
I said this to you 2 weeks ago. I'm going to say it to you again. There were not enough ships sent for this war at all. We had more ships off Venezuela than we did on this operation. Right? Now, granted, we had Puerto Rico, we had Cuba, we had other places that you could do it. And, your buddy, team guy, Matt Bracken, right, gave excellent. I thought his assessment of this was excellent. You know why? He had to float. That's what we call it when you're on a ship. He had to do floats. He's been out in horrible conditions and shitty things, having to do shitty things out there. But the Navy its life is at sea. And we do get shitty assignments. I pulled, I don't know, the longest float I ever did was 4 months. But I don't live on that ship. I borrow the ship, right? It was an aircraft carrier. We started in Norfolk, Virginia, went all the way across the Atlantic, and then went to Bosnia and started bombing Bosnia, right? And we didn't pull any port visits but we were close to all of our bases. They brought us lobster from Trieste, or, they could bring us fresh fruit from Italy and Spain and all these other places. The Northern Indian Ocean's got zip. And this Sal Macagliano, the guy who was the merchant captain, he explained it perfectly. Donald Trump loves to put money in all the cool guy things, ships and aircraft and all that. No one's putting money into merchant ships. The merchant ships that bring your food out. Military Sea Lift Command does not have enough ships. Now, if not, they were suddenly to say, in the next president, Malcolm, I'm making you chief of naval operations. What are you going to do? You're going to build us our Trump battleships. I'm like, no battleships, frigates, merchant lift. Heavy sea lift. Logistics is war. Now, everybody, the reason this is getting a lot of news, okay? When my dad was 15 years old, ran away, joined the Navy, and was on ships in the Pacific War, the most important thing that his family wanted to know was he eating? This is a huge issue in the U.S. Navy. Ever since World War II, all of that sacrifice our family did was to make sure that we were getting adequate food, because we're, big old grass-fed boys. That's what they always say. On an aircraft carrier, 6,000 men. When the full air wing is there, 6,000 men and women living on that vessel, operating on that vessel, 8 to 12 hour watches, depending on what you're doing. You have option to eat 4 meals on a carrier: breakfast, lunch, dinner, mid-rats, which is the midnight rations. That is always hamburgers and French fries, called sliders, right? Always sliders at mid-rats. That's because we want to keep you fueled. If you are working on the flight deck, once again, full disclosure, when I was 15 years old, when I left the working the bow catapults, they bought me out the Fly 3, which was the aft end of the aircraft carrier, to move chains on a 105-degree flight deck. Just to make it fun, they had me wrap chains around my shoulder and move chocks for airplanes until the air boss found out there was a 15-year-old on the flight deck. That lasted about 4 days. But you're exhausted at the end of that. All you want to do is shove food down your mouth, have cold milk, have bug juice, and get to your rack and sleep. And that carrier has been doing that for 250 days. They can see land in some instances, but they're not allowed to go to it. And for guys who are like, oh, you guys are a bunch of pussies. I sat in Afghanistan, ate MREs, and drank water and all. It's a different world. Okay, the stress of doing 12 on, 12 off, or 8 on, 6 on for standby watches and education, then another 8 hours on can get to you. I'm sorry to say it. It breaks my heart to have to say this. I was a chief in the Navy, so I'm not bullshitting you. Chiefs will never lie to you because we are the hard reality of this thing. People, that will make people want to walk off the side of the ship.
Yeah,
And it will make people want to kill themselves. And 5,000 men and women on a ship, you're going to get 1 to 2 suicides per float, even if you're going to Monte Carlo, right? Your Liberty boats are pulling into Port Hercule, or you're out in Nice or Marseille or some other place on the French Riviera. There's always people with personal issues and malfunctions that will kill themselves. I came onto a submarine, for example, and as we were going to borrow that boat for whatever I was going to do, submarine is 6 on, 6 off, 6 on, 6 off, right? You bed, training, sleep, bed, training, or work, bed, training, work, bed, training, work in a full, never-ending cycle. And you don't see land, you don't see nothing, unless you have a reason to come up. As I was going on that boat, they were taking the body of a guy off who had gone into the bow sonar room and one of the bow forward rooms and had hung himself on a 3-foot ladder, Jeffrey Epstein style. And it may have had nothing to do with submarines or his personal life. There are people that seek self-destruction. But when you get into a cycle of heavy, stressful work like this with no end in sight, you're in the Indian Ocean. Here's where you cannot go. You can't go to Karachi, Pakistan. They're not going to let you go to Mumbai, India, because you're bombing Iran. You're on a combat mission. 3 days steaming, 2.5 days steaming over to the Seychelles. Not going to let 6,000 sailors off in the Seychelles. There won't be an island when they're done. Maybe they'll steam you down for 7 days, 7 days, down to Diego Garcia, which is a little spit of a rock that I've been on. They will lower barges off the side of the carrier. They will fly in beer. They will hand you 2 beers, and you have what's called Steel Beach, or they'll let you onto the beach. And then it's back onto the carrier and back up there. They're not doing that because they're at war. And Trump doesn't care. This war did not have enough resources. If Malcolm Nance were chief, it would have been, hey, I want, just like Desert Storm, give me 6 carriers. You're all fucking going. Jesus right? Christ. Or I'm going to put 3 out there and I'm going to rotate a 4th out for exigent circumstances. And there will always be a carrier going off station to Haifa or to Singapore. But if these guys offload and they go the Abraham Lincoln and they go to Singapore, man, look out for the long bar at the Raffles Hotel. $54. We calculated this today. $54 US dollars for a Singapore sling, right? They're going to be making bank in Singapore because these people have been under real stress and they need to blow that stress off. And I just find their attitude at the Pentagon is that they're superhuman, they're super soldiers, they shouldn't have to bitch about this. Pete Hegseth went to Iraq and was at fucking Camp Ramadi or some dumbass place and they were shooting mortars at us. Bitch, you had fucking ice cream. There's a goddamn Baskin-Robbins truck in most of these places. And a lot of guys did get placed in remote places, but you cannot compare apples to oranges. And there's a lot of vet bros out there today who are like, my job was harder. The job's fucking hard for everybody, every people. Let's just get them their guy. But since we're not supporting them with the proper amount of food, they can't refuel. Water gets contaminated and stupid shit like that. This isn't just the carriers. The Tripoli's a carrier. They had that problem. The Boxer has that problem. And the small destroyers and frigates, they have a capacity to go into smaller ports. But guess what? The Persian Gulf as liberty ports or refueling, resupply no longer exists. It is a black hole because of this war.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, the aircraft carrier is being rotated. I don't know how long that will take, but there's another one on the way.
Yeah, though George Washington's on the way. I'd be telling them motherfuckers, flank out, right? Maximum speed. We got to get the Lincoln off station. And they will not let the Lincoln go till that ship is within airstrike range of Iran. So until it gets up to Mumbai, let's say, or Karachi, Pakistan. The Lincoln's got to stay there and then whoop, rotate out. They'll haul ass 6-7 days down to Singapore and then look out.
Yeah. Right, man. Appreciate the deep analysis as always.
That's fine. You got some good experts out there now, except for that Jackson Hinkle. All right, take care. We'll talk.